Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio, episode 264. Today we have part 2 of our chat with legendary writer and creator Tom DeFalco, talking all about his time at Marvel, the other comic book characters that we didn't get to in part 1, and more. Stand by. We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, 1 ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. And for those of you who are tuning in, hopefully from last week's episode, thanks for coming back. Part 2 of our chat with Tom DeFalco. We had so much content that we covered, I just had to break it up into 2 segments. I was trying to edit stuff, and I was like, nah, I kind of want to leave that in. Well, that's a really good point he made, too. I want to leave that in, so I just left it all in for the most part. So breaking this into 2 parts for you. This is part 2. If you're just now finding this, maybe you haven't heard the part 1, that's episode 262. The even-numbered episodes are our online weekly show. The odd numbers are our live radio show. And after it's live, my executive producer, Joey V, goes and takes all the commercials out and all the other nonsense and puts it into just a podcast form. So that's why there's a break in between 262, which was part 1, and 264, which is part 2 of our talk with Tom DeFalco. But that's enough exposition. Let's get into the rest of our chat with Tom DeFalco. And talking about money, the comic book business is huge with all the stuff we're seeing on the big screen and the small. When you go out, is there any particular Marvel movie or TV series? We've gotten WandaVision, and now What If is currently running on Disney+. Do you keep up with them all? Do you try to keep up with them all? Do you have a favorite or a particular portrayal of an actor or actress in a role that you've really thought nailed it, knocked it out of the park?
Well, I think the Marvel movies are terrific. Even the lesser movies are still pretty good. Mm-hmm. As a comic book fan, I just wish the DC films made more sense.
You and me both.
I don't want to be a Marvel cheerleader because I've worked for DC too, but too many times I'm left scratching my head as I'm watching a DC film.
Yeah.
I've seen all of the Marvel movies except for I haven't seen Black Widow or Shang-Chi yet. But I intend to see them somewhere along the line. The TV stuff I try to catch up with, whenever time permits.
Yeah, there's so much content. I'm sure it's hard to keep up with. And then obviously with the big ending to the Phase 3 was the whole Infinity War, Infinity Endgame, which was based on the Infinity Gauntlet. When you were at Marvel as the editor, you oversaw a lot of those crossovers, like the Infinity Gauntlet saga, Evolutionary War in the Marvel comics, where there's talk of High Evolutionary showing up in the Marvel Universe soon. Inferno, which was huge for the X-Men, but one of the ones, the crossover-wise, that never gets enough credit, and this is a hill I will die on, one of the best crossovers was so simplistic, it never had a mainstay title like Infinity Gauntlet, was Acts of Vengeance. I loved every single issue of the crossover. Whose idea was that? Was that something you came up with, like, hey, let's swap the villains out? Was it a collaborative thing? Kind of talk a little bit, if you would, about Acts of Vengeance.
I wish I could tell you who ultimately came up with that idea. It might have been Mark Grunwald. It might have been John Byrne. It was just too good an idea for it to have been me. I wish I could give credit where it was due. But I remember that, hey, this could be a fun thing. We had, tried some of that Acts of Vengeance idea in the past by doing things like having, Spider-Man fight Juggernaut, having Thor fight Juggernaut, that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And thought, hey, you know what? Why not a big crossover based on that sort of idea? And I overall, I thought the thing was a lot of fun.
And that was the series, too, that gave birth to the New Warriors, because Thor is fighting Juggernaut in the Acts of Vengeance. The New Warriors show up to help Thor out because his powers are kind of fading in and out. And then the New Warriors to have gone on and got their own title and everything like that. What was the idea? Was it just to kind of get a new super team when you and Ron Frenz co-created New Warriors? Was that just kind of, we had an idea for these characters and this is the perfect time to introduce them? Talk a little bit, if you could, about the New Warriors' first appearance.
Well, during the time when I was editor-in-chief, the vast majority of our readership was teenagers. Mm-hmm. And, and I used to also say, we do comic books for 16-year-olds of all ages. Those who weren't quite 16 and dreamed of that magic day, and those who were over 16 and still dreamed of that magic day. I thought, you needed teenage heroes. And around that time, Teen Titans had decided we're going to be called the Titans now because we're no longer teenagers, we've grown up.
Yeah.
And I looked and thought, oh, well, that means there are no teen groups. I got to come up with a teen group. And, I spoke to Ron about it, and we, put together a teen group, a teen group, because I thought, hey, it's important to keep introducing new characters, and especially characters who are teenagers, because that's where the audience was.
And like I said, they've gone on to be very popular. Their series sold like gangbusters for Marvel in the early 90s as well. Great numbers on that. And with another character, Thunderstrike, was one of my favorite characters. I love that Eric Masterson split off. He had his mace that Odin gave him. That was a great character too. Was there any thought initially like, hey, we've introduced this character. We know Thor is coming back at some point. Let's keep him around. Was it based on the popularity of the book at the time? Talk a little bit about, again, the keeping Thunderstrike.
Well, Eric Masterson, Ron Frenz and I decided we wanted to introduce a human identity for Thor. We figured Thor, whenever he's in a battle, he's destroying a bunch of buildings. So, why not have the guy who designs the buildings as a secret identity? Right. And we always knew from the start that Eric's relationship with Thor would not end well for him. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of clues that ultimately things were not going to end well for Eric. At one point we merged Eric and Thor, and then at another point we decided we're going to let Eric be the dominant personality, and then we were getting ready to do the storyline where Eric finally bites the dust. And the sales department came in and they said, what are your plans for Eric? And we said, well, I think he's going to die in about 4 or 5 issues. And they said, no, he can't do that because sales are skyrocketing. You got to give him his own book. And I said, what? And, and I called up Ron and I said that, they're telling me that we should spin Eric off into his own book. And Ron, God bless him, said, hey, sounds good to me because I can't say goodbye to Eric yet.
Right.
And so we spun him off.
And so many of these characters that came out of the 90s, like, Darkhawk and Thunderstrike are finding a bit of a resurgence again along with like Ben Reilly's back. He's got his own series again. When you think back on the stuff you've created, are there any characters or things that you created, helped orchestrate that you're surprised didn't stick around, didn't have the longevity of some of these other aforementioned characters? We'll take a quick break, come back, and finish our conversation with Tom DeFalco. Please stand by.
Holy cool listening. Hi, this is Burt Ward, Robin the Boy Wonder from the TV series Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me. Golly gee willikers, it's fantastic.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall, and we're talking with Tom DeFalco here about the characters he created that didn't seem to have the legs like Silver Sable and Ben Reilly had.
I've always been surprised. Puma, who I thought was a really cool villain, sometimes a villain, sometimes not a villain. You never really knew where you stood with him.
Right.
I always thought, he had a lot more legs than he apparently did, because a lot of guys used him through the 90s into the early 200s, and I don't think anybody's seen him in the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I can't remember him popping up recently, but I know I'm a member of some Marvel fan groups, and someone just pointed out, they said, this is a very underrated, underused character at Marvel right now. What's going on? That maybe he'll make a resurgence. Who knows?
You never know. And it's right now, that ball game is being played by other guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to come back. The nostalgia factor, though, I think that's something that can't be discounted, because a lot of things, everything old is new again. I feel that there are some nods being made to some of the stuff, especially because people who grew up reading comics in the late 80s and 90s like I did, that's kind of what they want to see. They want the Ben Reileys back. They want more Silver Sable and things that they recognized when they were buying comics early on. And another thing, talking about nostalgia, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all those 80s properties are blowing up. And if I'm not mistaken, you had a pretty solid hand in kind of steering those titles, working with Hasbro on them. The names most closely associated, obviously, Larry Hama, kind of like the godfather of G.I. Joe. And then Bob Budiansky is to Transformers what Larry Hama was to G.I. Joe. Talk a little bit about the relationship, kind of brokering that with Hasbro and the comic books, because you were right there on the front lines for that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, I was the editor. All the good ideas came from Larry Hama. A couple of them came from Archie Goodwin. Archie, I think, was the guy who came up with Cobra Command. Initially, Hasbro's idea was you had one character who basically assumed, the different, it was one character called G.I. Joe who was occasionally a frogman, occasionally a sniper, occasionally this, occasionally that. And we said, no. G.I. Joe's the name of the team.
Yeah.
And then we came up with the idea of Cobra, so that they would have a faceless enemy to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, G.I. Joe is like, that is Larry Hama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is all Larry Hama. I would love to take credit for Hama's stuff, but I can't. Larry is one of the, most talented writers and artists, creators this industry has ever seen. And, I'm proud to call him a buddy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I met him a couple times at cons, and he's not only very talented, but very humble too.
So many times Larry and I, were working together and came up with, all sorts of craziness that I look back on it and I think, Machine Man 2020, which which, maybe we should have thrown that a few more years in the future. Peter Porker, Spider-Ham.
Yes.
So many goofy ideas that, came out of, me and Larry just busting each other's chops.
And also with the Transformers franchise, because that Hasbro Marvel synergy, when you had the toy, the comic book, and the TV show, Transformers as well. I know we've had Bob Budiansky on the show talking about, the characters and everything like that. Was one property, did it present a bigger set of challenges than the other, Transformers versus G.I. Joe, or was it pretty much, same problem, just kind of a different creative standpoint?
I can't say one was more problematic than the other. They both presented a slew of creative challenges, and that's why we get the small mediocre bucks to solve those challenges.
But when you look back too on the legacy, I mean, obviously there's the money aspect at the time and everything like that. But when you think about all the things you had a hand in creating, guiding, that's got to feel pretty impressive to look back and say, wow, you know what? That was me. I did that.
Yeah, I guess. Like I said earlier, I tend to just look forward and don't spend a lot of time looking backward. As a matter of fact, I used to always tell Ron Frenz, never look at the published book because all it can do is depress you.
Talking about the books too, because I know we talked to Keith Giffen, who I was very surprised. I said, "Do you have some of your?" Nope, I don't have a single comic book in my home. I've never kept them. And a lot of these creators are sent comps. Do you personally have a comic book collection? Do you keep stuff, or is it kind of a Keith Giffen situation? It's like, no, once I'm done, I kind of didn't keep anything.
I have a set of I'm going to say a lot of comic books that I've had written. Mm-hmm. My early Archie stuff, I was not as diligent saving the stuff as I should have been. My early Charlton stuff, not as diligent, and but I do have a big chunk of the material that I've done over the years. I used to have a big comic book collection, but Hurricane Sandy wiped out most of that.
Oh no!
So somewhere along the line, I'm gonna get hold of the dealer and have him take the rest of it off my hands.
Yeah, that's something you can always, if you go to comic book conventions. I'm not sure if you're doing many of those. I know 2020 has kind of thrown everybody off their convention game, but that'd be something you could just bring a long box and sit there and sign them for people. That'd probably be a great thing for people to line up and have your comic books, buy the comic book from you and have them signed.
Yeah, I do. When I go to conventions, none in 2020. This year there may be one in December, but I'm not even sure about that. I'm not sure, when I'll be comfortable going back to conventions.
Yeah.
To my surprise, I actually miss comic book conventions. After I left Marvel editorial, I stopped going to conventions for many years because when I was editor-in-chief, I just had to go to way too many.
Sure.
So I just stopped. I decided, hey, if I have to work on the weekend, I'm going to be working on my writing stuff. And then good old Mark DeMatteis at one point said to me, you should actually go to some conventions, because you spend so much time doing the work. You should get out there every once in a while and see how the work affected people. And I always take everything DeMatteis says to heart, and then started to go to some conventions, and to my surprise, discovered that I actually enjoy the experience.
Yeah, and like I said, all the huge body of work you've done is obviously had a great impact on me. But so many fans out there love the stories and the characters you've helped create. And I know I want to be cognizant of your time. I don't want to keep you much longer. But speaking of characters and things you've created, you're currently reteamed with Ron Frenz. You're doing a project via Indiegogo called The Right Project. Talk a little bit about that for a moment, if you could. And we'll pause there. We'll take another quick break. We'll come right back and finish up our chat with Tom DeFalco. Please stand by.
Johnny is the human toy. The thing just loves to play. More for more. Yo, Joe!
Hi, this is Mary McDonald-Lewis, and I was the voice of Lady J on G.I. Joe.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner. I'm the voice of Flint on G.I. Joe. And listening to Geek to Me Radio is half the battle.
G.I. Joe against Cobra, the enemy, fighting to save the day.
We're back. Geek to Me Radio brought to you by the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. The website, of course, discoverstcharles.com. That's Saint with an S-T, not spelled out. So discoverstcharles.com. Lots of things happening. We're kicking off Legends and Lanterns now that we're in October. The middle 3 weekends here of October, you may have heard the live radio show. We had Ryan Cooper, the festival director, on talking about what a great time that is. And it really, really is a great time. There's so much to do, and we cram it all in those middle 3 weekends. There's a special added event that is a ticketed event called the Bayou Bash. You can hobnob with the likes of Baron Samedi and Marie Laveau herself and commune with the likes of Phantom of the Opera, the Weird Sisters from Macbeth, and so many other fantastical characters. Dance the night away, have a couple of signature libations. It's a 21 and up event, so leave the kids at home for this one. The rest of the event, though, the rest of the Legends and Lanterns, it's a family-friendly event. Goes on Saturdays and Sundays, and then that last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that we have the festival, Spirited Journey Through Halloween, as Ryan Cooper said. It's really a lot of fun. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th year of it now, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the 6th year, but it's going strong. And then, of course, right around the corner, we have Christmas coming up, and Christmas Traditions will be kicking off. It's like 47th year, I believe. It's crazy that that's been going on so long. The longest running and largest Christmas festival in the country happens in St. Charles. Go to the website. I just threw a lot of information at you, but it's good to see it on your own. Go to the website and explore that a little bit. DiscoverStCharles.com. Click the events tab, and it'll show you all the things there are to see and do while you're there in St. Charles. It's this fall weather is great. Makes it great for exploring, maybe bike ride the Katy Trail. Whatever kind of activity you're in the mood for, St. Charles has something that will fit the bill. Start with the website, as I said, whether you're in town and local or you're from out of town coming to visit. DiscoverStCharles.com. That's DiscoverStCharles.com. As we always say, it's an historically good time. Before we took that last break, we were wrapping up our chat with writer, editor, creator Tom DeFalco, and we'd asked him about a brand new Indiegogo project that he's working on with the creative talents of Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema.
Well, this is a character Ron and I came up with years ago. We always figured, we're going to work on this in our spare time. And, when you're working 10 or 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you don't have that much spare time.
Sure.
We're working with Sal Buscema. This may be the very last time people can see the three of us together. Because one of us is determined to retire. Ron and I haven't decided if we're going to let him retire yet. But this could be the last time that Sal joins Ron and I for a project. We think that, comic book sales are not great these days.
Yeah.
And we think that part of the problem is the decompressed storytelling. Mm-hmm. Stories that take 6 months or a year to tell.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So we want to do a comic book that has two complete 11-page stories, chock full of stuff. So if you're used to spending 5 minutes reading a comic book, a grim and gritty comic book, this ain't for you. If you want some hoo-ha action and a lot of stuff happening, and beginning, middles, and ends, and characters you can relate to, you might enjoy this comic book. Because this is, Ron, Sal, and me, we're doing the kind of comic books that we grew up with, and we think that we like them. And there are a lot of people that we know want these kind of comic books. So we're doing the kind of comic book that we want to read.
And so many creators have had great success. Jimmy Palmiotti has done Painkiller on Kickstarter, and a lot of fans are gravitating towards the creators doing their own independently created and owned characters and everything like that. So I can only imagine this will be great success, especially with the three of you working on it. If you're listening to this right now, go to the show notes. We'll have a link to the Indiegogo page if you want to back this project as well. So it's very exciting. So I really hope that in 2022, maybe when the plague has we're nearing an end, hopefully, it would be great if you and Sal and Ron were all at a con like Terrificon in Connecticut, and you could do signings of this thing, because it'd be so great to meet. I've met Ron a couple times, but I've not had the pleasure of meeting you nor Sal, and to be able to meet all three of you and get the book signed would be fantastic.
Well, the Indiegogo gives you an opportunity to get books signed by the three of us.
Oh, perfect.
2022 will be my 50th year in the comic book business.
Wow.
And I'm thinking 50 years is more than enough. So, if I can go to conventions in 2022, I will. After that, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah.
I think that, the knees aren't as tough as they used to be.
Right.
So.
Right. That'll, if you decide that'll be your retirement tour, then that'd be great. You can hit a couple of conventions up and get to meet a lot of the fans.
We'll see what the future brings.
And make sure you check out the Indiegogo. We'll put a link again to that. All the incredible things you've created. Are you on social media like Instagram or Twitter, or is there a website where people can keep up with you and kind of follow what you're doing?
Well, not really. I'm my only social media is LinkedIn and Facebook. Facebook, they limit the number of friends you can have. Mm-hmm. And I passed that number, too many years ago. I always had a very pragmatic attitude. If I turned on my computer, I should be working.
Right.
And I just did not have the time to spend on social media. And like I said, when you're working, 8 to 10 hours a day, it's hard to, spend any time on Facebook. I'm a lousy Facebook guy. I wish I had a better social media presence, but at this stage of the game, I'm winding down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, it is a huge time sucker too. So I'll get on there just to look something up, and the next thing I know, it's like an hour and a half later. So you're probably better off.
Yeah, and I mentioned you do things for love or the challenge. I am also doing another project for love, World of Archie number 117. It's a digest book. It was going to have a brand new Pure Heart the Powerful story.
Oh, really?
Me. Yep.
And so that should be coming out soon then? Is it already, have you already finished the writing process on it?
No, they asked me last week if I could come up with an idea. I did. I think it comes out in February of 2022.
Okay.
So I know what the story is going to be. I just haven't written it yet.
Gotcha. So we can look for that too, February from Archie Comics. This has been such a pleasure to speak with you. Like I said, all the stuff you've done out the years, and it gives me a chance to say thank you for, my 16-year-old me, all these great characters that I was introduced to, and all these great stories that I was able to read thanks to you. So that animation studio. We got the better part of the deal. You stuck around Marvel.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Tom DeFalco, thank you very, very much for your time today. It's been an absolute honor to talk to you.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. And while that is the end of our chat with Tom DeFalco, that's not the end of the show. No. We've got some bonus material coming up for you with 3 very talented people who have worked for the big 2 comic book companies, both Marvel and DC. Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, and D.G. Chichester, all 3 talents in one segment coming up right after this. So please stand by.
Hey, hi, listeners. This is Greg Berger.
Meet Grimlock, Dinobot leader from Transformers.
And guess what? You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back for our final segment here on Geek to Me Radio. Want to make sure we tell you about our official movie sponsor, Marcus Theaters and Movie Tavern. If you're going to get out and see No Time to Die, if you're going to go out and see Halloween Kills or any of the spectacular movies that are out right now, and I'm so glad movies are back. It makes me giddy that we can go out and see these movies now and do it in a safe, comfortable environment like Marcus Theaters. Go to the website, marcustheaters.com. Find the location closest to you of the Marcus Theaters or Movie Tavern. You can also download the Marcus Theaters app. I have it on my mobile phone, and it saves me time. If I'm out and about, I don't have to think about which one's the closest to me because the GPS will automatically tell me which one's closest, and then I just go right in, buy my tickets. Yeah, let's get some popcorn so it's ready when we're waiting for a more contactless experience. It's never a bad time to go see a movie, and there's no better time than now. Tuesdays, take advantage of their $5 Tuesdays. Any movie you want to see, $5 on Tuesdays. Plus, if you flash your Magical Movie Rewards Club card, you get a free complimentary size popcorn as well. So make sure you sign up for that as soon as you get there. If you've never been to a Marcus Theaters before, ask the person at the ticket desk or one of the people behind the concession stand for an application. They'll gladly give you one. You fill it out. Boom. You start earning points towards movies, towards concessions, and you get rewarded for seeing movies and buying concessions. It's great. And like I said, you flash that card and you get the free complimentary popcorn on Tuesdays. There's all sorts of other perks to it as well. Again, all mentioned on the website, marcustheaters.com. Marcus Theaters, the best movie-going experience in the galaxy. Before we took that last break, we were getting ready to bring you 3 fabulous talents, Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, and D.G. Chichester. We had a little informal writing roundtable from Terrificon back in August. Mitch Halleck puts on a great event. If you're looking at cons to visit in upcoming 2022, put Terrificon on your agenda. It's Terrificon, TERRIFICON.com. One of the best cons in the entire country. I'm not even kidding. But I had the chance to chat with Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, and D.G. Chichester all at the same time, and we just kind of picked their brains a little bit.
Here at Terrificon, we've got Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, and we've got D.G. Chichester. I almost called you Dan again.
Please, just retake that. No, just keep going.
So talking writing about comic books, between the 3 of you, probably several thousand pages of written material.
Oh, easy, yeah. I mean, I've got 1,400 stories of my own. So, and every one can be told in the Naked City. So,
I think I've heard most of them today, and thank God he wasn't naked.
I think as long as we make that definition of written very broad, we're good.
That's right, after hours.
Yeah. And so when I think of each one of you, a certain character comes to mind. I think of Ghost Rider, I think of Daredevil, and I think of the Doom Patrol immediately springs to mind as well for you. Do you guys like being associated with certain characters, or does that kind of, do you feel like that pigeonholes you? We'll start with Howard.
I have no problem. I mean, Ghost Rider, literally put a roof over my head. So I have no problem. I have a lot of fans who come to the table at every show with lots of stacks of Ghost Rider comics. I've written other things. I did a lot of Spider-Man. I did pretty much every character in the Marvel Universe at some point. I've written a story that at least featured them. But I have no problem with Ghost Rider, especially if it makes people afraid of me.
When your head starts burning, we get a little bit like, all right.
You put an ointment on it and you're fine.
There's a salve for that, I'm sure.
Yes, there is.
You're offering that at the merchandise
I
table?
am. It'll be on my web shop.
And Paul, same question. Do you mind being associated so closely with Doom Patrol? Or
No,
is it...
not at all. I love these characters. I got into comics because my main love was for Superman and the Justice League and those kind of guys. But when I discovered Doom Patrol, it was like, where has this been all my life?
Yeah.
It was one of those books that that just struck me when I discovered it. And then 7-8 years later, an editor comes to me and goes, "You want to write the Doom Patrol?" Yeah, hi, I'm in comics.
Yeah. And Dan with Daredevil, but you've like Terror and all these other Night Stalkers you've done. Does it bother you to be associated so closely with Daredevil?
Well, I'm getting on in the age. So remind me, who's Daredevil again?
He's the blind
the blind guy.
Yes.
The blind guy.
Battle
right?
armor.
No, I mean, I think you get a chance to do these characters, and if somebody's going to, and you've done the work that they actually remember that you had some input into that mattered to them, that's a great thing to be associated with. I have no problem at all, and enjoy it, and I'll ride that as long as I can.
And obviously there's the rivalry between the big two, Marvel and DC.
There's a rivalry between me and Howard.
And that as well, but we're going to talk about that.
I don't like either of them.
And I guess we are the big two right here.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that off camera between the personal rivalry, of course. But with there being a rivalry, you guys have worked for other companies. So did it ever come down to the writers? Did you guys personally ever feel the pressure of Marvel or DC or anything like that at all? Was there ever pressure with the writers at all, or was that mostly corporate?
Like in terms of like a rivalry, I don't want Paul to get something or Howard to get something.
Just like if you're working on Daredevil, did you want to? I want to one up Batman in the sales, or I'm writing this.
Yeah, sure. You always want to do better than the other guy, but again, it comes down to we're all fans of this stuff, and Dan did a great run on Daredevil. It's like I'm not gonna poo-poo that. It gave me something to read that I enjoyed. Howard's nothing.
But you're right. I did nothing.
Yeah. But this is Howard. This is Dan. This is Paul. If you guys haven't met, so.
The rivalry. We were very aware of it when I was on staff at Marvel, and we referred to DC as our distinguished competition, and we did. I mean, it was in many ways it was easier then because it really was only between Marvel and DC, and you did always keep an eye on what the other guys were doing, and you tried to one-up them. But I think that was healthy for the industry at the time. And as a result, not as a result, but because of that, there was a deal between Marvel and DC that we all got everybody's comics. So, ad nauseum, we got stacks of comics of all of the Marvel stuff, but of all of the DC stuff as well, so that we could be aware of what they were doing, also who they were using, and which writers and artists we wanted to pilfer from them. And back the other way.
Yeah.
So
it was like a baseball rivalry then, really.
It really was. It was a corporate rivalry in some ways. I don't think it ever extended to the individuals. At the end of the day at the convention, we're all going out and having dinner and getting drinks. It didn't matter what company you worked for.
As long as somebody else is paying.
As long as somebody else is paying for it. Yeah. Oh, man, do I miss the days of when I was an editor and charge account?
We miss those days, too.
Those were... It's like, who's around? Come, we'll buy you lunch.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
I think the rivalry, for me at least, was more creatively. I would see a story that Howard would do or Paul. I would be inspired to want to do something better, not to put somebody else down. It's like, oh, damn.
Yeah, good work on it. Yeah,
good work.
Promotes good work, and that's really it. It's as a kid, I was a hardcore DC fan, but I still read Marvel and I loved the stuff. And the day I got to shake hands with Stan Lee and talk to him was like, it was. I also got to meet Julie Schwartz, so I got the two legends from these two companies, and they both had the same impact on me. That's all that matters is what the reader gets out of it, and royalties.
Absolutely. One of my proudest moments, mentioning Daredevil and Stan Lee, was when Stan shook my hand at a convention and said, "You know what the hell you're doing with that costume change?" and then just walked away. So
I remember Stan once said to me, "Hey, Alan, how you doing?" So I always like that.
Nice. And I know you guys are here at Terrificon. I've seen people bring up their portfolios to show you their art or their writing, everything like that. If for anyone watching who's an aspiring writer or artist, what's the best advice you've gotten that you would give to them?
Don't go into writing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Learn to draw.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Learn to draw. What?
Become a letterer.
Oh, letterer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, colorist, anything. Just don't write. No,
for me early on, I not only read everything. Read, as we were just saying, read what's being done in all the comic books, but read beyond that.
Yeah.
For instance, if somebody had written a book that would teach you the illustrated guide to writing comics.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute.
I have one here.
Yes. And if you order tonight, before midnight.
But wait, there's more.
Oh.
We'll throw in a Penance Stare Black. Copyright pending by Dan for the sweatshirt for your purchase. We're cross-promoting. This is great. So same question to you, Paul?
What was the question?
About, have you ever gotten some great advice, or what advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
Oh, well, the aspiring writer is write. Just write and read a lot. Just read the stuff that's good. Don't care what genre it's in. Just if it's good and you like it, read it. And if you want to be a writer, just keep writing, because writing is not easy, and it's a developed skill. It's a muscle that you have to build. And I've been working on it for 50 years, and I'm so eventually I hope to get good at it. No, Jesus. That
I'm
hack?
waiting for it on tape.
The audio book version.
No, I want it on tape. I don't want audio. I don't want it digitalized.
You just want to
be able to go into my cassette player.
Who would narrate, though? That's the question.
I think I should do it, but like in a Brooklyn accent.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, or maybe get Bobby.
Get Bobby to do it. That would be great. So you just write the fucking comic book, and you got it. What are you talking to me about?
Take a look at the timestamp for the F bounce.
Okay.
No, it's fine. Though.
That's all right.
I love it. It's natural. And it's video too, so you're not going to care about it. And same question to you, Dan.
Well, they stole the two big good ones, but I will give one really practical tip as a writer, which I've always found very successful. If there's something you want to work in, a certain genre, Western, business type thing, a horror genre, start typing something that you're inspired by. Just retype Stephen King pages, retype Louis L'Amour pages, and what you're doing is you're not going to ultimately ape that, but you do kind of create a sort of a muscle memory in your fingers and in your mind. So then when you start to pivot off and start doing your own thing, you're kind of in the groove of it. It's a technique I've used again and again. And then just made sure I took Stephen King's name off it. But it does sort of get you in the zone.
I got to tell you, R.L. When my son was young, we got an R.L. Stein tape at some fast food place of one of his.
The Goosebumps, probably.
Yeah, Goosebumps. Yeah, Tower of Terror, I think it was, and my son listened to it compulsively in the car. Every time we were in the car, I must have heard that thing 300 times. And then one day, I sat down to writing an adult novel, and I found I had the structure
of just from listening to it.
From listening to it.
Right, yeah,
I met R.L. Stein just before the lockdown. I met R.L. Stein at an event, and I told him the story, and I said, "Thank you very much. You taught me how to write young adult novels." So yeah, but that's true. Like just hearing that thing over and over and over again, it imprinted. I learned the structure.
And last question, guy, I want to keep the.
I'd like to just tack on to that one.
Come on, we're running out of time.
Well, no, sorry, but the Tom DeFalco gave me a really good piece of advice when you're writing a lot of stuff. As you said, yes, exactly. But sit down and just start writing. You may not have the story yet. You just start writing. I was fortunate enough. I was writing Spider-Man or Ghost Rider. I knew the tropes, and so I could sometimes just start writing. Spider-Man runs across rooftop, shoots out a web line, and I just start going through the paces to get my fingers moving, my brain moving, and eventually one of the characters would turn a corner and find the story I wanted to write. So, sorry.
And last question, because I don't want to keep the three of you any longer, but if you had to say a particular author who influenced you the most and made you decide to go into writing, we'll start with Dan.
Stephen King. Yeah, it's been my go-to author forever, and continues to this day, even though he sort of goes on and off different levels. Yeah. I would always go back to that.
Paul?
It's weird. I wanted to be a writer before I could really read books. It's a weird, I just knew I wanted to tell stories, but I think one of the earliest writers that impacted on me was Jack London.
Oh, yeah. All the Wild, all that great stuff.
All the adventure stuff. Yeah. And then later on, when you grow up and you find his grown-up novels, They're like amazing.
Yeah. Howard?
I'm going to go with King is great as I got older, but Tolkien, I just fell in love with that world. I got pulled into it. I reread the books every year for many, many years. Got to geek out with Walt Simonson when I found out that he was such a Tolkien fan. And I go back to them and I get pulled into the world. And I like any writer that does that for me, that pulls me into it. It's what I like about comic books when they're done right, is you get pulled into the panel and into the page. And so I'll go with Tolkien.
Perfect. And when you put that hood up, you sort of look like Gandalf.
Well, exactly. Or a Dark Rider. Also available.
This will be on the website, so you can check it.
Tolkien Black. Nazgul Black, and also Penance Stairs.
Exactly. It's just a slightly different, one's like a midnight green, I guess, a slightly different shade. But yeah, perfect. Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, Dan Chichester, thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
That's going to do it. My thanks, of course, to Tom DeFalco for being so generous with his time. Thank you to Howard Mackie, Paul Kupperberg, and DG Chichester. And, of course, thanks to Joey V, who always makes this show sound as good as it does every week. Wouldn't be here without him. Thank you to our sponsors, Discover St. Charles and Marcus Theaters. Check out those two websites. And until next week, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch a zombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, New York. Good night.
Hey kids, are your parents about to buy you a shiny new toy from Amazon?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Well, don't be selfish. Share some of that money with us. Before going on Amazon, make sure to type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser. It will look just like Amazon.com, except it'll say referral Geek to Me Radio up top. And then when you check out, a tiny percentage will go to support the show without costing you 1 cent more. So before your parents get you that gizmo, gadget, or widget, make sure they type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser.
Bit.ly/geek to me. Bit.ly/geek to me.